Here's something you don't see every day. Shop update time, boys and girls. This is a Wolf Ultramatic competition pistol. And if you think the Germans did complex stuff in World War I and World War II, you should see what the Austrians perpetrated on us in the 1990s. Let's dig down inside this thing a little bit, shall we? The cool thing about this Wolf is that other than being hideously complex for what it does, it's gas operated. You see this black line right here? That thin black line right there is actually an annulus into which gas escapes into, pushes backwards on a piston on the top of this, and then vents out the top through these two holes right here. So if I shut this thing, let me see if I can get it closed while it's in. And let's see if we can see the, hang on a minute. Up here, let me see if I can get this view of this gas piston for you guys. You can see it going by. There it is, right there. You see it going by? Right there. There's actually a gas piston, and it pressurizes, comes out the top, gives you a little bit of compensator action. Hideously complex. It's when we get to the rear end of this peg that it really starts getting weird. That's a takedown lever right there that allows this camming surface here to slide through that block and in the rear end, and and you can't even call it the slide on this thing. It's more of a top cover. And the barrel is hard mounted to it with this block right here. If you slide this block out of the way, the barrel will come out of it. And then it has a bolt up inside of it, so you can see the differential motion. You pull back and it unlocks. So this thing is like a ball lock pin, and there's two balls up inside this sucker that are extended, and when you pull back on it, the balls collapse and it allows the bolt to come all the way to the rear and then come back up to the front. There are a variety of firing pin interlocks. There's all kinds of gizmos that are up inside this thing to make it safe. These two pins that are hanging down here, this is actually the disconnector. As the bolt comes aft, you'll watch these pins jump up. See them jump up? When it does that, it disconnects the trigger. Now, the last guy that went in this gun did not understand why this did this, and he attacked it with a Dremel tool. And I've never met the man. I don't know who he is. I can't say as to blame him, though, because I would have attacked this thing with an oxyacetylene torch. I don't know if this looks familiar to some of you guys on the inside of these guns, but there's a lot of stuff going on in here whenever you pull this trigger, and I'm going to reposition ever so slightly right here and see if we can't get some better contrast. Pulling the trigger results in two things in this particular gun. The sear is on the left side, and the sear, when properly connected, will lift free and allow the hammer to drop. Okay, and we can watch it snap back in here, right there, okay? The device on this side drops out of the way when you pull the trigger. And if you remember when I was talking about all the stuff on the back of this slide, right here, this is actually a firing pin interlock. So you can see that as this comes forward, the firing pin will not be allowed to move if this tit right here is sticking up. It actually stops that from coming forward. So when you pull the trigger, that's gonna, I wasn't supposed to do that. When you pull the trigger, that will drop down. And when that part there on the left drops down, it unlocks the trigger. Now, as the bolt comes forward, you can see that there's a raised ledge right here. And that raised ledge, as it comes to the rear, pushes up on this part. This gizmo right here, that raised ledge will push, whoops, I dropped it. And I've picked it back up again. This particular piece will be pushed down, and as it's pushed down, it will do the disconnect feature here. So we're going to drop this, and then we're going to reach in with this screwdriver, and you'll hear it click. Okay? That's the reset that allows it to come back to full cock. So this particular piece is brushed downwards, pushes on these two pads. Having repositioned this, you can see these two pads here that move up and down. And as this moves up and down, this will then disconnect the trigger. The trigger bar is underneath this magazine release here. And as we're moving the trigger, you can see the fore and aft sliding motion here where it disconnects. So watch. Okay. So you pull back on the trigger and then this drops down. Now, there are two set screws here and here that set how much of a slope this bar rides down. So as it comes to the rear, it hits those two screws and it rides down. And then on top of all of this mess, when you bring the safety up, the safety denies the motion of all this. It locks it, but if you come beyond, it will actually disconnect the trigger and allow it to drop. So the thing actually has a decocker on it. And the literature I've read says that this thing also has a double action feature, but I really can't tell because that's going to lead us to the second point here that I want to make. And I don't know if in this lighting you can see this, but the inside of this gun has been gone after with a Dremel tool. Something fierce. Now, they only made about 4,000 of these guns as far as I've been told in the 1990s. They're worth $4 to $5 grand a piece if you get a clean one. This particular gun was given to me with redundant parts. It was given to me with parts that were broken because they had been beat on so hard. And I had to make 2 springs for it. There's a spring that makes this want to be up, and there's a spring that makes the sear want to be down. Those had to be made because the ones that came with it were, the owner of the gun tried his damnedest to give me every single thing he had. But at the end of the day, this thing is a blivet, man. This is 9 pounds of garbage in a 2-pound sock, and I got it in a bag. You see a theme starting to creep in here? So as far as I can tell, this thing came with a variety of bureaucrat mags, these 10 rounders back in the 90s. And then this is a Canic something or other. What the hell does this thing say? Magger for Canic TP series. Appears to work. Here's the funny thing about it. There's not enough distance when the bolt's all the way back to get this thing to feed 147s. So we've got a target gun that won't feed 147s. It'll run 115s, and in this particular case, 124s actually pretty well. But I just don't get it. It's overly complex. It's Teutonic. So the Wolf Ultramatic is one of those firearms mysteries that becomes a question that no one really asked and doesn't work. Didn't take the top round. So the Wolf Ultramatic winds up being an answer to a question nobody asked. I get to do a lot of those. I get a lot of these guns that come in here in bags, and you never really know what the hell you're gonna get whenever it works. See, that one didn't even pick up a live round. So goes my day. Still taping? It's a unique piece of kit. Got to mess with it a little bit more. Got to dial it in. But I don't know if I would go out of your way to get one of these things. I'm not bashing it, but holy crap! You talk about overcomplicating something. Here it is. Anyway, it's cool. I just wanted to let you guys see this thing, but I wasn't going to take it apart for you. I'm sorry. Well, after that Austrian box full of Chinese fingers, the next thing we come to is this. I get guns like this in the shop. Please be something good. Please be something good. 1911. All right, now we're getting into something. John Moses Browning. Let's get down on the bench and see what we got here, or even if we have the entire freaking gun. Okay, let's go do this now. At least they left the bushings in it. I've started to take it apart already. It just took Bruno a little while to get the camera set up. Firing pin, return spring. It had in the bag here, it had an extractor. And, okay. So I usually try to get everything that goes up in a slide first. We got a recoil spring. We got a bushing. That goes in the front here. It looks like we got 4 grip screws. Let's see, anything else for the slide? Oh yeah, the barrel. Barrel's a bonus. We got a barrel, good. Now we're down below here. Yeah, believe it or not, it almost looks like all the pieces parts of this thing are here. But it's nasty. Oh my God, this thing has got rust all over it. Okay, we got a sear. We got a disconnector, and we'll properly lay this thing out. We've actually got the mag release there. A variety of goop encrusted pins and springs. Believe it or not, I would have to tell you that I think this entire gun is here. What have we got here? Oh, wow. Yeah, we'll have to take that apart. There's a lot of just goop. Okay, so we're going to conserve this thing. We'll march it back and just boil it, just for grips and grins. Well, it's summer, it's South Carolina, and you can plainly hear that it's raining like a cow whizzing on the flat rock. So we'll just sit here and watch this gun convert for a little while until it gets quiet enough that we can film again. When we set up to go back on the bench again, we had a mic cable go bad and didn't detect it. So the rest of this video is going to be done with the camera's audio. We've got wires on the way here, but just bear with it. We're going to do the best we can here. All right, let's go. All right, I got this thing back out of the conservation pot. We got all the yak off of it. I've got the inside of the gun laid out up here because if you're this far into this video, most people have commented on it and haven't even watched the video. Sometimes I gotta wonder, the things that I explain very clearly in the video, people comment on in the comments, so it tells me that all they want to do is run their mouths and they haven't taken the time to do 5 minutes worth of research. So we're going to talk about how this thing feeds, and we're going to do it with a round of 45 because I don't want to use my beat up. My test dummies are horrible. So note that the firing pin is laying right there and that the hammer is laying right there. So all the things necessary to make this go bang and blow a hole through that expensive ass camera right there are not here. So we lock this round inside the frame and we're looking at, oh, I don't know, a 45 ACP round sitting right there. And this round feeds in 3 stages. It goes forward. Let me get it out here in front of it. Okay, it goes forward. Then it tilts up. And then after it's done tilting up, it pops into the chamber. So let's do that again with the barrel in place. Here's the barrel. All right. So the barrel can link up and down. And when it's linked back, before the gun locks up, the round tips up into the chamber and then it pops up in the back like that. It comes up and goes in. While it's coming up and going in, it has to get underneath. It's got to get underneath the backside of this 45 ACP round. So we'll see here, we've got the claw. And here's the extractor, okay? And the rim of the round has to pop up underneath that. And I think even from back there, you guys can see that. Now, to make this climb up over this rim and snap over it, it won't do it. You don't have a large enough spring, and there isn't a whole lot of room. And if you look at this, you will see that this has a slight bend in it. So there's actually an arch to this, and how much pressure it's putting in right there, the round sitting there, how much pressure it's putting in determines whether or not the round is either going to pop up underneath the rear end of it, or it will go, the round will go about, I don't know, you'll find the gun hung right here like this, and it just hasn't gone in, and it, you know, a quick tap on the bottom will shove it in because the tension on this extractor was so heavy that it couldn't get around the bottom end of this round. So let me put some parts in this slide here and we'll go from there. All right, this is a very contrived angle. I got my vise grabbed over and I've got all this in here to show you what I'm talking about. I have the extractor mounted in the gun, and it's in here by friction right there. You can see the hook. So we begin by pushing forward, and then we're going to tip up. And right now we're tipped up, and right there you can see the rear end of the cartridge has snapped underneath the extractor. The extractor on a 1911 does not pop up, does not snap over the rim like it does in some guns. And then as the barrel pinches down, it pulls it backwards. The trick is it's got to have enough tension on it that it can control it, but not so much tension that it's difficult for this to snap over the top. So as you can see here, that does that. Now, I'm going to pop it back, and that's going to disappear and get out of the way. So this can be bent in and out ever so slightly. So let me reset one thing here. Just hold that camera angle, Bruno. So I've got all that out of the vise now, and we're taking a look, and here's the end of the extractor right here. And this grabs this cartridge with enough tension. Let me see if I can get my fingers to work here. I'll get this in there. That has to have enough tension to hang on to this, but not so much tension that it can't just easily pop free. Okay, I know we're looking through my fingers again here, but at the end of the day, that should grab that with enough tension to hang on to it. So if the cartridge falls out, you may have extraction issues, but if you can't easily push this thing in and out with your finger, the tension may be a little bit too much. Let me kick this thing out of the back end of the slide here then and show you something up tight while we're here. So if you see this, let me get my hand behind it so you can see it. There's a slight curve from the right to the left. There's a slight curve, and there's a slight bend in this thing, and that's the tension. It's pushing off of this knob right here on the inside of the slide, and it's giving it a little bit of extractor tension as it grabs the cartridge right there. And that's really all you want. Now, in one of these that's been set up for a modern gun, you'll see a bevel cut in this right here to assist that ride over. But this is pretty much box stock. It looks like World War II gun to me. So I'm not going to go cutting any bevels unless it doesn't feed right. John Browning's greatness. I'm going to tell you, it's simple. It has low parts count. It works every time. If you get the magazine set up right, you get your forward, your tip, and your pop in, the gun should work. It should work upside down as well as right side up. And that, friends, is how that is done.